Hello everyone, welcome back to Beauty of Language. So board exams 2026 is already here. So today we are not just going to read this chapter, we are going to master the chapter, the growth of nationalism. So if you watch this video till the end, you'll get exactly what you need for the board exam, a clear flow that helps you write answers confidently without getting confused or missing any point. So after this video, you will know how to frame every topic: economic exploitation, social religious movements, the oppressive policies of Lord Lytton. Yes, this name is very important from an exam point of view. But for the students who are appearing for the board exams 2026, for them, this is not to be, you don't need to study this because this question was already asked in the previous exam in 2025. Okay, the rest of the students who will be watching this video, you can definitely go through it. Okay, we are going to know about the major reformers and the formation and foundation, important associations, and the sessions which are held by Indian National Congress in proper exam language, correct sequence, correct keywords. See, this is not English, but still I focus on keywords. Maybe that is my habit, or maybe yes, should be writing a few words like annexation, confiscated, these words. Okay, if you write, it's good. So let's start the chapter, Growth of Nationalism in India, step by step. I have already uploaded the whole explanation of the first chapter, the first war of independence, 1857. Long video, all the shorts have been uploaded. The shorts for this chapter also I have uploaded so that you can go through all the topics individually, okay? Suppose just in case. And I suggest you that you watch this video and then watch the shorts so that you can understand how much things you understood from this chapter, understood from this video, and the things which you have not understood, you will get it to understand from the shorts. Now, let's get started. So, nationalism, what does nationalism mean? Nationalism means a strong feeling that we all belong to one nation, that we should stand together for its freedom, dignity, and progress. So, in the late 19th century, so this feeling, it became very strong in India. Okay. Now, why is that so? See, people began to clearly understand one thing, that British rule was not meant for the welfare of Indians, and it was mainly meant to benefit whom? It was mainly meant to benefit Britain. So in this video, we will cover the major reasons that helped the nationalism grow. That is economic exploitation, social religious reform movements, the repressive colonial policies of Lord Lytton, major reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Jyotiba Phule, Dayanand Saraswati, and Swami Vivekanand, and their contributions. Now, I'm not discussing all of their contributions, but yes, the main ones in a very precise way so that it will be easy for you to remember them, okay? So, because since it is asked in the exam that you need to know at least 2 contributions of all these reformers. Now, foundation and formation of the Indian National Congress, as I said, its aims and major sessions. Let's begin step by step. But before I start, let me tell you that I have made shorts on all the topics in the chapter. So after you finish it, do watch all the shorts so that you will also know how well you understood it. Now, discussing about the economic exploitation that led to the rise of nationalism. So, see, one of the biggest reasons behind the rise of nationalism was economic exploitation. People slowly, they started realizing that the British policies were designed to make Britain rich and keep India economically weak. And this did not hurt only one group, it affected almost everyone in the society. Because of this common suffering, Indians started feeling that to improve their lives, they need freedom. Okay. Now let's see how different groups were affected. The first were the peasants. So the peasants were the main victims of British colonial policies. A large part of their produce was taken away as either land revenue or other taxes. Okay. Now these taxes were heavy and mostly they were unfair. Now because of this, peasants were forced to borrow money, and once they borrowed, they fell into the control of landlords and moneylenders. So peasants faced poverty, debt and helplessness, and this created anger against British rule. Next were the artisans and the craftsmen. So British policies also that destroyed Indian handcrafts and local industries. So the East India Company, it uses political power to weaken Indian trade. Okay, India was made a supplier of raw materials to Britain, and at the same time, India became a market for British finished goods. So Indian artisans and craftsmen, they lost their traditional work, their income collapsed, and this created another strong reason to oppose British rule. Next is the working class. So the modern industries led to the rise of a working class in India. But now here what happened that these workers, they were exploited by the factory owners who were generally who? They were generally the Englishmen. So even though the working class was small in number, but it had a new outlook, it had a new perception. The problems, the struggles, it made people think more seriously about their rights and justice, and this also strengthened political thinking in India. Next were the educated Indians. So the educated Indians, definitely they also faced problems. So government service was the main job option for them. But the competition was very high and the promotions were very limited. Okay, no matter how educated you are, no matter how talented, how skilled you are, the promotions will be limited. Now, many educated Indians had hoped that British rule would develop India just like Britain. But what happened? Instead, they felt that British policies were keeping India economically backward. So, educated Indians also joined the growing opposition, which they did not do during the first war of independence. Okay, do watch the long video in order to understand this chapter well. Now, what was the overall impact? That all these sections suffer together, a common feeling grew. If India wants economic improvement, India needs freedom. So this is how economic exploitation became a major reason for the rise of nationalism. Now let's come to another very important topic, and that is socio-religious reform movement. So in the 19th century, what happened that Western education had influenced many Indians. It promoted a rational and a very scientific way of thinking. Educated Indians, they began to feel that for India to progress, society and religion, it needed reform. It needed change. So reform movements started and they touched almost every section of Indian society. So these movements became pioneers of Indian nationalism because they created awareness, unity and leadership. Now, why did these movements help nationalism grow? First, they promoted a shared identity. Now, people started thinking beyond caste and community. Second, they created social awareness and encouraged public debate. So, this made people more active and more confident. Third, they showed that progress can come by accepting the best ideas both from East and West. Now, what reforms did they do? In the social sphere, okay, in the social area, they worked against social evils. And what were those social evils? There were caste discrimination, child marriage, dowry system, which exists even today, but yes. Padda system, sati, infanticide. They also fought against all social and legal inequalities. Now, talking about the religious sphere, so they challenged superstitions, opposed idolatry and polytheism. Idolatry means worship the statues, okay, as gods. Criticized hereditary priesthood. Hereditary priesthood, you understand, no? Suppose if someone's father is a pandit and his son also will be pandit, then his son, okay, like that. Supported individual liberty and social equality. And now we study the most important reformers. The first is Radha Ram Mohan Roy. So Radha Ram Mohan Roy was one of the greatest social and religious reformers of the 19th century. He wanted to remove all the social and religious evils that were common in Bengal at that time. Now, in 1850, he started the Atmiya Sabha. He struggled against idol worship and meaningless rituals. In 1828, he founded the Brahmo Sabha, which we which is popularly known as Brahmo Samaj. So, what were the main ideas of Brahmo Samaj? The first one was belief in one God, okay? Condemnation of idol worship, focus on prayer, meditation, charity, and morality. Unity among people of all religions and all creeds. He also led many social reforms, like he opposed the rigidity of the caste system. He campaigned against sati and parda. He condemned polygamy. He discouraged child marriage. He supported widow marriage. Now, because of his efforts, William Bentinck, he passed a law in 1829 making sati illegal and punishable. Next, women's rights. So he strongly supported women's rights. He demanded rights of inheritance and property for women. He was a pioneer of Indian journalism. He brought out journals in Bengali, English, Hindi, Persian. He also started weekly newspapers like Samvad Kaumudi in Bengali, Miratul Akbar in Persian. He also demanded abolition of East India Company's trading rights, removal of heavy export duties on Indian goods. You already know that there were heavy duties on the Indian goods that was exported to different to Britain. We will study this in the first chapter itself, the first part of Indian independence. Then separation of executive and judiciary, trial by jury, judicial equality between Indians and Europeans, Indianization of superior services. Okay, so all these were done by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. And he was so influential that Rabindranath Tagore even called him the father of the Indian Renaissance and the prophet of Indian nationalism. Okay, Renaissance means change. Talking about the next reformer was Jyotiba Phule. If you are a student from Pune, then you must be knowing this. Pune, Maharashtra, you must be knowing this name. Jyotiba Phule was an urban educated reformer. He belonged to a so-called low caste, so he understood inequality very closely. He strongly supported women's education, and that is why in 1848, along with his wife Savitri Bai Phule, he started one of the first girls' schools in Pune. Later, they opened more school for girls and also a school for untouchables. In 1873, he founded Satyashodhak Samaj to secure social justice for the weaker sections of the society. Now, talking about the next reformer was Swami Dayanand Saraswati. So, Swami Dayanand Saraswati's original name was Mool Shankar. He was a philosopher, social reformer, and founder of Arya Samaj. He was born on February 12th, 1824 in Tankara, Gujarat. Okay. He wrote Satyarth Prakash, which contains the teachings of Arya Samaj. Now, what were the ideas of Arya Samaj? So, basically, it was the supremacy of the Vedas. So, according to him, Vedas are divine, and its motto was to go back to the Vedas. Supported widow remarriage, promoted female education, supported Sanskrit and Vedas, but also modern education. That is why he opened DAV schools and colleges. Okay, then in the Anglo-Vedic school. So, first DAV college was established at Lahore in 1886. Next reformer is Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda was a Hindu monk, spiritual leader, preacher, and reformer. So he spread Vedanta philosophy in India and also in the United States and Britain. So he was born as Narendranath on January 12th, 1863 in Calcutta. So at that time it was Calcutta. His father Vishwanath Dutt was a very well-read and rationalist. His mother, Bhuvaneshwari Devi, was a very deeply religious lady. In 1881, he met Ramakrishna Paramhans and accepted him as his guru. Ramakrishna also chose him as his spiritual successor. Now, before his death in 1886, Ramakrishna initiated him and others into monkhood. In 1897, Vivekananda founded the Ramakrishna Mission. Belur Math became its center. The mission did social service through schools, through hospitals, through dispensaries, libraries, and orphanages. So the text, it mentions 293 branches that is there worldwide. And the main aim of the Ramakrishna Mission is to manifest divinity inherent in man, to create harmony among faiths, to serve mankind. So the teachings were basically the one which is there by all the reformers, that is oneness of all religions, pride in Indian philosophy and tradition, opposed caste system, rituals and superstitions, promoted liberty, equality and free thinking. In 1893, he attended the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago as a representative of Hinduism. He began the speech with Sisters and Brothers of America, and on this, he received huge applause. Okay, his speech is remembered even today. So after that, he toured the USA and visited London, spreading Vedanta. He died on July 4th, 1902, at the age of 39. See, basically, students, all the reformers, about all the reformers which he studied, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Jyotiba Phule, Swami Vivekanand, Swami Dayanand Saraswati. So, there were there were a few things that were common in all the four reformers. First was they opposed all the social evils, okay, child marriage, Padda system, sati. So, if any qualities are to be asked about these reformers, so these common things you can mention. They did not, they opposed the caste system. So these things you can mention. They wanted women to develop. They wanted reform in the society so that whole India as a nation can develop. Now, moving ahead to the foundation of Indian National Congress, and I'll also tell you about its prominent associations. Okay, it is important because in the question, in the exam, the questions are asked regarding the prominent associations of Indian National Congress, so you need to know it. Coming to the political side of nationalism, so by the second half of the 19th century, Indians increasingly felt that British control over India's resources and people, it must end. So, political associations started in different parts of India. Even though they were local, but it helped create political awareness and prepared the base for an all India organization. So, the first major association was East India Association, which was formed in 1866. It was founded by Dadabhai Naoroji. It basically provided information about India to British citizens and members of parliament. It voiced Indian grievances and suggested remedies. Grievances, you understand, right? Grievances means the struggles, the complaints of the Indians that they were having under the British rule. It had branches in Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. Next was Indian Association that was founded in 1876. Headed by Surendranath Banerjee, it aimed to be an all India movement, and its objective was to create strong public opinion, unite Indians on common political interests, promote Hindu Muslim unity, encourage mass participation. So, what were the achievements through these associations? First of all, it agitated against License Act, that Indian Arms Act, Vernacular Press Act. Okay, I'll discuss all these acts in the future chapters, so you don't have to worry what all these acts are for. Just remember the names. Now, it also opposed lowering ICS age from 21 to 19, Indian Civil Services age. It took up cause of workers on British-owned plantations, but it failed to become fully all India in character, basically. Okay. Now, Indian National Conference was held in 1883, which was headed by Surendranath Banerjee at Kolkata. It gave a model for the Congress, and later it merged with the Congress in December 1886. So, this was how the foundation of the Indian National Congress was made. Now, after this, formation of Indian National Congress. So, Indian leaders like Surendranath Banerjee, Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tyabji, and Justice Raradev, these were moving towards an all India political body. So, they got support from Alan Octavian Hume. You must have definitely heard about this man, popularly known as A.O. Hume. He was a retired British civil servant. He wanted an organization that could point out administrative problems and also suggest some remedies. He wrote an open letter to Calcutta University graduates urging them to organize and work for people's service. In 1884, A.O. Hume and Indian leaders laid the foundation of the Indian National Union. Now, Gopal Krishna Gokhale believed that if the founder had not been an Englishman, the British might have suppressed it in its early phase only. But since an Englishman was there, so they at least let it continue. So a conference was planned at Pune on December 25th, 1885. Now, due to plague, it was held at Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College in Mumbai. So it was held from December 28th to 31st, 1885. Its president was Vomesh Chandra Banerjee, actually. It had 72 delegates, okay, from different parts of the country. On Dadabhai Naoroji's suggestion, the name was changed to Indian National Congress. So the foundation was laid on December 28, 1885. Lord Dufferin supported it as a safety valve for popular discontent to protect British interests. But over time, Congress became the leading organization of India's freedom movement, and India achieved its freedom in 1947. So the aims of the Congress was basically to protect political workers, to bring political workers together, to build unity, to strengthen national unity beyond caste, beyond their religion, and no matter from where they belonged, okay? To present people's demands before the government, to organize public opinion in the country. So Congress held sessions every year in December to plan its programs. So the aims of this International Congress also changed over time according to the circumstances. The first session was held in 1885, which was presided by W.C. Banerjee. As I said, 72 delegates attended from all over India. Important names were these. Then second session was held in 1886. It was held in Kolkata. The president was Dadabhai Naoroji. Now, some delegates were called distinguished visitors by Lord Dufferin. So, after this, Congress met every year in different parts of India, and the delegates soon increased to 1,000. In the beginning, it was just 72, but slowly it increased to thousands. And the important sessions and resolutions are these. So, students, the growth of nationalism, it did not happen suddenly. It developed step by step. Okay. Economic exploitation created anger and unity. Social religious reforms created awareness and confidence. The great reformers, which we talked about, they gave new ideas and also leadership. Political association prepared the ground, and finally, the Indian National Congress gave a national platform to organize the freedom movement. Now, if you remember the chapter in this flow, it becomes very easy to write the answers in the exam. That's all for the video. Keep revising in points and connect every topic to the main idea. India united because people realized freedom was necessary for a better life. I hope you like the video. Do like, share and subscribe to the channel Beauty of Language. Stay tuned to know about the first phase of Indian national movement. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, bye-bye. Take care.